The shuttle's hull vibrated as it descended, Veressa's aurora-washed clouds swirling just beyond the glass. Quentin Vale sat rigid, hands curled in his lap, memorizing the names of regents, protocols, and the dozen little courtesies expected of Earth's first official envoy to the Veressan High Court. He'd studied the reports: Veressa, a world of crystalline forests and frigid winds, its people ruled by logic, unity, and ancient law. But none of the reports had prepared him for the moment when the airlock hissed open and alien blue daylight poured in, dazzling and cold. A tall figure awaited him at the bottom of the ramp. Golden skin shimmering with a faint iridescence, sharp angular features, and a circlet resting lightly atop obsidian hair. "Welcome to Veressa, Envoy Vale," the woman said, her accent clipped, eyes a stormy silver. "Thank you, Regent," Quentin faltered, hoping he'd guessed right. "I am Terran, Chamberlain to Lady Silra." "The Regent is waiting." Terran led him through frostlit corridors of the palace, each step ringing on translucent floors. Veressan architecture felt like walking through a glacier, all light and edge. They stopped before massive double doors. "Compose yourself," Terran murmured, "she does not favor delay." The doors parted, revealing a chamber so vast Quentin's breath misted in the cold. At its heart sat a throne, carved from blue-white crystal. And on it, a woman wrapped in midnight blue robes, her posture regal, her face concealed by a silver veil. "Approach," her voice commanded, low, melodic, but distant as winter. Quentin knelt, as instructed. "Envoy Quentin Vale, of Earth." "At your service, Lady Silra." The regent's eyes, all that showed above her veil, regarded him coolly. "Your journey was safe?" "Yes, my lady. I come as a friend, to serve the exchange." "Indeed," her gaze lingered. "Your role has changed. There is need for a different service than diplomacy." Quentin's throat tightened. "I am trained as an ambassador, your skills are noted. But Veressan law requires a comfort presence for the regent. A companion to share warmth during the long nights." The shock left him speechless. "That's not romantic," she cut in. "Merely practical. Our bodies require warmth and presence. My council believes your temperament is suitable." He looked up, searching her expression for some hint of feeling. "If this is how I can serve, I accept." "Good. Terran will show you your quarters. You will join me at first moon." As he was led away, Quentin's heart pounded. This wasn't what he'd trained for. Yet something about Lady Silra's poise, her loneliness, perhaps, called to him. That evening, Terran brought him robes of soft, woven crystal fiber. "Do not fear," she whispered, "the regent is less distant than she appears. She is bound by many chains." His quarters were adjacent to hers, the door between them opening with a hush at the appointed hour. Inside, the regent sat at the edge of a wide, low bed, her veil set aside. Her hair fell in waves of deepest midnight, framing a face both proud and weary. The room glowed softly with pale blue light. "You may sit," she said. "We must share space until dawn." Quentin moved cautiously, settling onto the edge of the bed. An awkward silence grew, broken only by the sound of their breaths. Finally, she spoke, softer than before. "Why did you come to Veressa?" "To serve." "To learn," Quentin answered. "And maybe to see something beautiful." A faint smile tugged at her lips. "Beauty is not something my people value highly." "Perhaps that's why you need someone from elsewhere," he said quietly. They lay in silence, the shared warmth seeping through their robes. As the night deepened, Lady Silra spoke of her burdens, the chains of duty, the coldness of her people, the price of leadership. "You're not alone," Quentin murmured, unsure if she meant for him to hear. Her eyes met his, silver and sad. "Perhaps not. But I am not free, either." By dawn, something had shifted. When Terran arrived with morning tea, she found the regent and the envoy still sitting side by side, the barriers of distance and tradition just a little thinner than before. And as the new day began, Quentin Vale realized that sometimes the hardest chains to break are the ones forged around the heart. Quentin Vale learned quickly that time in the regent's chambers followed a rhythm unlike any other place on Veressa. Days in the palace were dominated by silence and observation, each moment punctuated by ceremonial restraint. But nights belonged to something else. Something slower. Softer. Infinitely more dangerous. 3 weeks into his new role as Silra's designated comfort presence, he had learned to read the tilt of her head, the subtle inflections in her voice. Each night they lay side by side on the circular bed of woven heat thread and memory foam, never quite touching, until they did. Their closeness was never spoken of in daylight. Taryn never mentioned it. Neither did Silra. But each evening, she removed her veil before him, let her dark hair fall over her shoulders, and allowed her voice to speak things no one else had heard. One night, as a gentle snowstorm ghosted against the wide window panes, she whispered, "They buried my brother beneath the crystal pines." Quentin turned his head to her, slowly. "You've never mentioned a brother before." His name was Oren. Younger by 3 years. He would have been regent, had he lived. It was his birthright. Not mine. Quentin's breath caught. What happened? An accident. A fall. But it was no accident, she inhaled sharply. Our house was divided. Our mother dead. Our father unfit. Power-hungry cousins circled like carrion birds. He didn't speak, didn't move, just listened. I was a child, but I saw everything. After his death, they named me heir. The court accepted it because they feared another war. But they do not love me. Not truly. I am tolerated. Obeyed. But never trusted. Quentin reached out, barely brushing her fingers. I trust you. You shouldn't, she said, her voice breaking just enough to make it real. I don't know how to love anyone. Not anymore. Quentin didn't pull away. Then let me remind you. She said nothing, but her fingers curled around his. Life in the palace pressed on with its cold elegance. But under that frozen surface, whispers bloomed. They spend too much time alone, one courtier muttered behind a wineglass of crystallized nectar. A human. In the regent's chambers. Nightly. It's inappropriate. It's dangerous. Quentin heard them, of course. So did Silra. Neither acknowledged it. Instead, he continued showing her pieces of earth. Not with technology, but with memory. He described beaches. The feeling of sun on skin. The music of waves and laughter. We have no oceans, she said one night. Our surface is frozen. Our seas are buried beneath miles of ice. But I've watched your oceans in our archives. It feels alive. I grew up near the Pacific, he told her. I used to fall asleep to the sound of surf. Warm nights. Bonfires. Music. Music, she repeated. We don't have that either. Not really. We have tonal structures for ritual and communication. But not for pleasure. He hummed a song to her that night. A lullaby his mother used to sing. He didn't remember the words, just the melody, simple and gentle. Her eyes closed. He thought she might have fallen asleep. But then she whispered, "Do it again. Please." So he did. The storm came without warning. Not the weather, but the betrayal. It started with a power fluctuation during a routine orbital cycle. Then a crash in the systems that managed the diplomatic archives. Quentin was walking back from the council chamber when the palace lights flickered, then plunged into darkness. Within seconds, security teams were scrambling. Taryn found him and pulled him into a side passage. You need to get to the lower districts, she hissed. What? Why? They're saying the sabotage was your doing. That you've compromised our systems. The regent is trying to hold the line, but the council is fracturing. They're demanding your detention. He didn't ask who they were. He already knew. He found Silra in her chambers, already dressed in tactical garb, something between armor and robe, midnight black with shining sigils down the sleeves. "We have to go," she said before he could speak. "They've locked down the West Wing. They think we're conspiring." "We are," he said, unable to stop the wry smile. "Not like they think." Her voice was low, furious. "This is a coordinated move. They waited until a foreign presence gave them reason." "Me?" "No," she said. "Them." She grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the hidden service tunnels beneath the Regent's platform. They ran. Beneath the throne room, through frost-slick catwalks, past servant quarters filled with flickering lights and panicked whispers. Some nodded to her. Others averted their gaze. "Where are we going?" he asked. "A safe house," she said. "Beneath the memory towers. It's where Orin and I used to hide." His breath burned in his chest, but he didn't let go. The safe house was a hollowed-out space beneath a collapsed structure from centuries ago. The walls hummed with geothermal heat. The air was dry. Safer. Silra collapsed into a pile of faded cushions. "We'll wait here. Just for tonight. Taryn will keep the court distracted." Quentin watched her. Saw the tremble in her hands. "You've done this before," he said. "Run. Hide." "Yes. But never with someone else." He knelt beside her. "I'll follow you anywhere." She turned toward him, face unguarded. "Raw. I don't know what this is. What we are. But I know what they want to do to us. They'll call this treason." "Is it?" "No," she said. "It's survival." Then she leaned forward. Kissed him. Not with fire, but with gravity. As if she'd been falling toward this moment for weeks. He kissed her back, anchoring her, hands cradling her face, bodies trembling in the underground heat. Their robes fell away. The barriers fell too. When it was over, they lay tangled in the silence, heartbeats steadying together. "We just made everything harder," he whispered. "Yes," she said, eyes open in the dark. "But also clearer." He pulled her close, and neither of them slept. At dawn, Taryn's encoded signal reached Silra's wristband. "They know," she said simply. Quentin didn't ask who. Or what. He already knew. But he also knew something else now, something neither betrayal nor tradition could take away. He loved her. And he would fight for her. Quentin woke to stillness. No breath of wind, no low hum of palace machinery, just the weight of Silra's body curled beside his, the hush of the underground hideout, and the faint pulse of geothermal warmth beneath the stone. For a moment, the illusion held, that they were safe, unseen, that the night before had changed everything. But then reality crept in through the cracks, the council's suspicion, the saboteur's success, the tightening noose of tradition and politics. Silra stirred and sat up slowly, her robe falling back around her shoulders. Her face was drawn, shadows beneath her silver eyes. "We have to go back," she whispered. Quentin pushed himself upright. "You're not safe there." "No one is safe anywhere, not really," she said. "But if I vanish now, it confirms every accusation. I'll be branded a traitor. You'll be a fugitive. We already are." "Not yet," she said, standing and fastening her sash. "Not until it becomes official." Quentin watched her, aching. There was something regal in the way she composed herself, even in exile, even half-dressed. She was the kind of person who bore her chains with elegance. And maybe that was the tragedy, she believed she was supposed to wear them. By midday, they slipped back into the palace under cover of a diplomatic caravan's chaos. Taryn was waiting. "You've been declared compromised," she said without ceremony, leading them into a service corridor. And the envoy is under formal investigation for collusion. Espionage. Attempted destabilization of the council. Quentin blinked. They actually believe that? No, Terran said. But they want others to. Who? Silra asked. High Counselor Draven. He's already convened an emergency tribunal. He intends to use this scandal to seize the regency. He has the support of 5 of the 9 council houses. Silra's face remained unreadable. He's waited years for this. And now you've given him what he needed, Terran said. Not without sympathy, but not without sting either. Quentin felt the weight of it. I didn't mean. I know, Terran said. But intent doesn't matter. Perception does. Within hours, the trap was sprung. Quentin was summoned under the pretext of a formal inquiry into the sabotage. 2 guards escorted him to the diplomacy hall, where he was seated before a tribunal of counselors and scribes. Draven presided, his black robes immaculate, his expression the picture of concern. Envoy Vale, he began, thank you for your cooperation. Quentin kept his shoulders straight. I trust this will be brief. Indeed. It's a simple matter, Draven gestured, and a holodisplay ignited midair. We recovered this from your quarters. A stream of data flowed, a digital map of the Virescen defense grid, planetary shield harmonics, troop routes, encrypted channels. Quentin went cold. I've never seen that before. And yet it was found in your personal terminal. I never accessed anything like that. I don't even have clearance. Which only makes your possession of it more alarming. Quentin's jaw tightened. You planted it. Careful, envoy, Draven said smoothly. Accusations carry weight here. Quentin stared at the display. The data was real. Detailed. Damning. And yet. Where's the origin trace? Excuse me. You're showing me raw files. Where's the access log? The user trace. Every Virescen system records origin metadata. That caught the room off guard. Even a few counselors murmured. Draven tilted his head. The metadata was unfortunately corrupted. How convenient. Regardless, Draven said, recovering smoothly, this investigation is ongoing. For now, you will be placed under house arrest until the regent has issued her formal response. Quentin didn't ask which regent. He could feel the shift in the air already. Silra was stripped of authority the next morning. Not by decree, but by manipulation. The council convened in secret, using a clause buried deep in the constitutional articles, allowing for a temporary transfer of power if the regent was deemed emotionally compromised. Silra didn't even fight it. She stepped down quietly, handed the seal of judgment to Draven, and left the chamber without a word. Quentin watched her from his secured suite, where the palace AI projected a filtered feed of the proceedings. He saw the moment she walked past the high banners, her posture perfect, her face unreadable. But he knew. He saw it in the stillness of her hands. She was devastated. The guards came for him the next night. You are to be deported at dawn, they said. Your presence is no longer compatible with the safety of the Dominion. Quentin didn't resist. But he made one request. Let me see her. Denied. Silra was imprisoned in the lunar wing, an old ceremonial chamber sealed for generations. She was alone. Uncharged. Held under the guise of recalibration. In truth, she was being erased. Terran found Quentin minutes before his shuttle was to depart. You have an hour, she whispered, slipping him a passkey. Use the north corridor. Avoid the open halls. She doesn't know you're coming. Quentin nodded. Thank you. She saved us all once, Terran said. Time someone saved her. Silra sat in a meditation circle of cracked obsidian when he found her. She didn't look up. I thought you'd be gone, she said. Not without you. She turned. Her eyes were dull. I've destroyed everything, Quentin. He stepped closer. No, you've given them something they're afraid of. That's not the same. They'll kill you. Maybe. It began with silence. Not the ceremonial kind, or the tension before a speech. This was the heavy, gasping silence that follows a truth too powerful to deny. The throne hall, moments after Draven's escape was foiled, held its breath. The air seemed to crystallize around Silra as she stepped forward with Quentin beside her. Citizens of Veressa, Silra said, voice low, even. I was chosen as regent to guide, not to rule. To lead, not to dominate. But I forgot that guidance is not submission. I forgot that leadership requires courage, not in battle, but in vulnerability. Quentin watched her speak not as a displaced ruler reclaiming power, but as a woman reclaiming herself. I do not deny the bond between myself and the envoy, she continued. Nor do I apologize for it. It was in that bond that I remembered who I am, and who Veressa could be. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the assembly. The old guard stiffened. Some rose to walk out, Terran blocked their path. Sit, she said quietly. Hear your regent. This world has been ruled by fear masquerading as order for too long, Silra said. Today, that ends. And if you will not walk with me into the new age, then you will be left behind. She extended a hand, not to the council, but to the crowd. And it was the crowd that stood first. Not the nobles. Not the houses. The citizens. Ordinary Veressans. Elders, students, workers from the outer districts. And when they stood, the chamber changed. No longer a trial. Now, a revolution. In the chaos that followed, Draven and his conspirators were taken into custody. Terran assumed temporary control of the Security Council while Silra refused to reclaim the throne outright. She called for a convocation, a gathering of citizens and liaisons, Veressans and humans, to rewrite the terms of leadership itself. Quentin sat at her side in the weeks that followed, unofficial, unelected, but indispensable. He offered not policy, but perspective. Asked questions no one had dared voice in centuries. Why must emotional bonds be seen as threats, he'd ask. Why must power and love be enemies? Some hated him for it. Others listened. And then, on the fourth day of the convocation, an elder of House Yeth stood. Perhaps we feared love, she said, voice rough. Because it could not be controlled. But if our systems are so fragile they cannot endure love, then they are already broken. Change did not come all at once. Laws took shape slowly, fought over in long debates beneath the dome. Some still resisted, clinging to isolationism. Others worried that Earth's influence would overrun Veressan identity. We do not wish to become human, said Counselor Real. Only, more humane. In the end, they rewrote the core laws. Redefined leadership. No longer would rulers be punished for attachments. Regents could declare their chosen bond openly, though with safeguards to prevent abuse. And what of you, Regent? Someone asked Silra. Will you formalize your bond? She stood slowly, hands clasped. I do not wish to make a spectacle of my heart, she said. But I will not hide it either, she turned to Quentin. I choose him. There was no applause. Just a quiet acknowledgement, heavier than any cheer. Later, in their private chambers, Silra stood before the mirror, hair down, robes loose. You were never supposed to stay, she said, watching his reflection. You were meant to visit. Represent your people. Then leave. I know. And now. Quentin stepped behind her, rested his hands on her shoulders. Now I choose to stay. Not for Earth. Not for diplomacy. For you. You'll lose everything you built. Then I'll build something new. She turned, leaned into him. This is still dangerous. Then we face it. Together. But not all chains had been broken. On the seventh night after the convocation, an explosion rocked the upper tower. A relic wing collapsed, killing 3 historians and injuring a dozen staff. The blast was traced to an old faction, one that believed in purity through isolation. "You are their symbol," Terran told Silra afterward. "You and Quinton. They fear what you represent." Silra stood in the broken garden where the explosion had scattered frostglass shards across the ground. "They should," she said. "Because we are not afraid to love in the open." Quinton came to her then, took her hand, and they stood there, exposed, unguarded, but unbroken. When the new Regency Council convened for the first time under the revised charter, it was not in the old throne hall. It was in the open air, beneath the aurora. Silra wore no veil. Quinton wore no title. And when they walked down the crystal steps together, no one called it scandal. They called it history. In the weeks that followed, they built something neither of them had known how to name before, not a reign, but a life. Silra would still wake in cold sweats, memories of Oren's fall haunting her. Quinton would still doubt himself, wonder if he'd changed too much to return to the man he once was. But each time, they met those doubts with presence. She would hum the lullaby he taught her. He would trace the scar on her palm she once hid beneath gloves. And between them, there grew something sacred. Not perfect. But whole. And so, one night beneath the moons, Silra whispered, "You shattered every lock. Even the ones inside me." Quinton kissed her shoulder. "Then let's never rebuild them." It was nearly a full cycle after the fall of Draven when Veressa held its first Unity celebration. Silra stood at the edge of the high promenade, the open air swirling with ribbons of bioluminescent light. Behind her, the new Regency banners rose from the crystalline spires, no longer etched with cold sigils of bloodline and isolation, but glowing patterns representing unity, courage, and open bonds. Quinton adjusted the collar of his deep blue tunic, the fabric threaded with patterns inspired by both Veressan lines and earth embroidery. Beside him, Silra looked serene, but he could feel the tightness in her hand where it clutched his. "You could still change your mind," she said quietly. "About you?" he smiled. "Not in this life. I meant the ceremony." "That too." She glanced at him, and this time, she let herself laugh. The Unity celebration was not a wedding in the traditional sense, Veressans had no such institution. But the new laws allowed for declarations of chosen union, public affirmations of emotional and political alliance. This one, however, was the first between a Veressan regent and a human. In the crowd, delegates from 23 systems watched. Human envoys, Veressan historians, neutral observers from the Galactic Concord. And ordinary citizens. Thousands of them. Children waved banners. Elders wore veilless robes. There were even love songs, real ones, composed in secret and shared that morning. Quinton and Silra stood at the center of the Aurora Bridge, where the light formed a shimmering halo above them. "I was born into duty," Silra began, her voice carrying without amplification. "I lived in the cold, and I learned to survive it. But I never expected warmth. Never imagined it could be real. Never imagined it would find me in the form of a human envoy with steady hands and inconvenient hope." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Quinton stepped forward. "I didn't come here looking for love. I came to serve, to listen. But somewhere between your silence and your sorrow, I saw something unbreakable. Not your rule. Your spirit." Silra blinked rapidly. The wind caught the edge of her robe, sending midnight fabric fluttering. "I choose you," she said. "And I choose you." They joined hands. The light around them shimmered and turned violet, a sign of resonance in the old myths. No music played. And yet, the crowd fell into reverent stillness. Hours later, the celebration echoed through the towers. Food stalls and light dancers flooded the commons. Children wove star-leaf garlands. Dignitaries toasted with Veresan nectar and earth wine. Quentin found Silra leaning against the sky rail at the edge of the festivities. Tired? He asked. Exhilarated. Terrified. He slid an arm around her waist. You were flawless. I almost forgot my vows. You made up for it when you called me inconvenient. She smirked. I meant it. He turned to face her fully. Do you think it will last? Her expression softened. The love? The change? The peace? Only if we keep choosing it. Every day. Through every resistance. Quentin leaned in. I'll remind you when it gets hard. Promise? Always. A week later, the first joint delegation between Earth and Veresa departed for the Galactic Assembly. Quentin wasn't on it. They asked for you personally, Terran said, standing in his office. I know. But they'll get someone better. Why not go? Because I've seen what real diplomacy looks like, he said, smiling toward the window where Silra spoke with two young apprentices. And it starts at home. Time moved. Seasons shifted. The frost forests bloomed with new bioluminescent moss. Peace didn't come easily, but it came. Silra restructured the council into a ring instead of a throne. Decision-making became shared. Transparency, once an offense, became the law. Quentin taught at the academy, leading seminars on empathy, on emotional intelligence, on alliance building through compassion. They grew older. More human. More Veresan. And yet something wholly new. One night, 20 years after the Unity celebration, a young girl stood in the palace archive. She was half human, half Veresan, with her mother's silver eyes and her father's grounding presence. She pointed to a hollow of the old banners. Why do they look like chains? Silra knelt beside her. Because once, we thought strength meant being alone. Now we know better. Are you strong? The girl asked. Silra looked at Quentin, who stood at the doorway, smiling. I am, she said. Because once, someone taught me how to break the locks. And when the girl asked what love meant, Silra answered. It means not hiding anymore. Love, they learned, was not a singular moment. Not the night they first held hands beneath the frost moon. Not even the moment they shattered tradition before a watching world. Love was a choice. A defiance. A daily act of courage. And in the end, it crowned them, not with gold or crystal, but with something no conspiracy could take. Freedom.